Hello, 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 and welcome to the Radiant Rebirth Online Retreat, where we are igniting our age of empowerment, owning who we truly are, gaining clarity of direction so that we can take those soul-aligned actions with joy, ease, and grace. Today, I have the pleasure of being joined by Kim Searle. Kim is amazing, first of all, but she's
Thank you.
also a mindset coach, a speaker, and an author who helps clients to overcome overthinking, imposter syndrome, procrastination, overwhelm, and stress to gain mental clarity and emotional balance. Kim, it is wonderful to have you here today. Welcome.
Oh, thank you so much for having me here. And thank you to all the listeners to this right now. I'm really
Yeah.
pleased.
Oh, I'm really pleased. I'm excited to have you here. And I'm really excited about our topic today. It all starts with you. It all starts with you. Would you like to explain a little bit more about what that means for our audience?
Yes, of course. So, over a lifetime of work, and it has been a lifetime, I've spent a lot of time observing people, and there's a lot of, and I've been guilty of this, fixing things in the outside world. Uh, the house is not great, let's move. The car's not good, let's get a new one. The partner's not working, let's change. And it's a lot of fixing our external world. And it was only through a personal experience of moving for about the fourth time in as many years that I was like, hold on a moment, there's a common denominator there. Hello, me. And over the subsequent years, I've learned that a lot of our problems comes from within,
Mm.
and it's not our fault. It's not our fault. So for anybody who's worried that whatever circumstance they're in, they're to blame, no. What it is a lifetime of conditioning and programming and training and fitting in with the mores of either your social network or your society or, religion, even, the doctrines that go on. We are programmed to the nth degree so that we've forgotten who we are.
Mm.
And it's who we are at our core is important, because once we get that even aligned, it hasn't got to be perfect. If we could just be more aligned, things all just happen much easier and more effectively. It all starts with us. We have to make the decision.
It's so important, isn't it? And I think it's sometimes a message that we forget. It all starts with us because we are so used to fixing everything, especially as, mothers, wives, daughters, what have you, business women, entrepreneurs. We're very used to fixing the external and making everything else work. And we sometimes forget that it does start with us. And that programming that you're talking about, are there some tools or strategies that you might want to share, or what information would you like to share with our audience really about how we get rid of this programming, how we reprogram the programming?
Okay, so I have got a slide that if I may show you, to walk through.
Beautiful.
People
Excellent. Excellent.
because even if now is not the right time, or whatever, if they get a basic understanding of that, I feel like I've started on my journey of my mission of helping people by raising the vibration of the planet one emotion at a time. So I'm just checking that you can all see that,
Yes.
and I'm using Overwhelm here specifically because I think that's the one of the key indicators that we can have, and we can be overwhelmed because everything comes at once. Here, as we're recording this, all the children are going back to school. Working mums are trying to work that out, and then there's the whole school stuff and the work stuff, and we're coming into winter, so there'll be the last minute planning for the business. There's a whole raft of things that are going on, and it's when a load of events come together that we can become susceptible to overwhelm. So I'm using that as an example. And what happens is it's a journey, but the trouble is it happens almost outside of our awareness immediately. So we're managing everything day to day as women. And so I know we're dealing with older women here, but some of them may have had children late in life or whatever. You're managing everything and you're doing it. There's not much scope for things going wrong, but you're able to, you're doing it, you're coping. And then suddenly you're starting to find yourself juggling. Well, hello, this is a warning sign that something has tipped over. And that juggling, if it carries on for too long, then starts to build stress up because you're being put under pressure every day to achieve something, to meet a deadline, to get something done. And this is why it starts with us, because that is coming from inside. If we dropped a few things, the world would not end. There are some things you can't drop, I get that, but there's an awful lot we could. And that stress, if that goes on for months on end, can lead to overwhelm. And
Mm.
some people bounce, as I did, between stress, overwhelm, and what eventually took me out was burnout. And I'm not just talking a weekend of recovery here, I'm talking months of recovery. You're set back because your body has said enough. And so that journey is how have we got there? Why is that the case? And so what I came up with was a model. I wrote a book, Midlife is Not a Crisis, Rediscover Your Drive and Reclaim Your Happiness. And this yellow piece here, where it says experience, this is where we're trying to control. We're all trying to control it. We all do. Um, and that's fine as long as we don't put a lot of weight on it. The trouble is, and people don't realize this, we're controlling this with 20% of our brain. I use the 80-20 rule, but in a different way. So we're only actually using 20% of our brain here because the other 80% has been decided in every circle underneath. Okay. Because cognitively, we can only process, so it is said, plus or minus 7 bits of information at any second in time. So there's loads more going on at any one time. You've only got to be in a crowded room to know that there's just too much going on. And I want people to understand it's this inner world from behaviors, thoughts, values, emotions, and then this deeper one here that are the key areas where we can really begin to take control. And by doing so, what we can do is start to change our external experience. So maybe if I could use a phobia as an example. If anybody has got a phobia of, say, I'm going to go with water, what I want you to know is just change the word water to something that's a little bit better for you. Anything. I'll try and just use the word phobia, but I'll be thinking water. So what happens is when we are born, we're like a blank sheet of paper. And when that happens, we start to absorb our world through our 5 senses. And for those of you who are that way inclined, the 6th sense as well. Just depends where you are. And what happens is we learn stuff. We experience our world and we start to get programmed because what the brain is doing is learning. And every time it's learning, it's applying a biochemical marker to say, yes, that was good, or no, that was not good. And it's very binary in the first 7 years of life. And that binary learning is stored in the body as a biochemical marker and a learning, which I'll come back to. That biochemical marker is a feeling. And this is where I work most because that biochemical marker of a feeling is our sat nav. So when we're not feeling great, that's the body mind saying, this is not right. I don't like this at all. And that's not to say that it's something that is bad, but it might be something that needs to be addressed. And if we start to tune into it, our body mind, and this will go very much for the physical, although my knowledge in that area is somewhat less. Every ache, pain, whatever we have going on, the body is talking to us and saying, this isn't right, something's wrong, you need to pay attention. But in this modern world, Kia, we just live up here in our head because guess what? We've been trained to be like that.
Mm.
And why the biochemical marker is because it can work faster than that. It is that instant. It fires off through the nervous system via the vagus nerve because our body, our skin, even if you like, is a bit like a radar sensing stuff we're not even aware of, fires off through the nervous system up to the brain, and the brain then does all its clever stuff through, I think it's the amygdala, but don't quote me on that. It fires off all the stuff that says, okay, adrenals, you've got to kick out these cocktail of stuff. You've got to do this, muscles get ready for the fight, flight, and fear response. So we've got the learnings and we've got the emotions, and it's that root cause that if you can get there, and I don't mean just clear the limiting belief that may have happened, I'm talking about clearing the biochemical marker as well, because you can clear that, but the biochemical marker is still a memory in the body, and we need to neutralize it or bring the temperature down on it. That's the key. The trouble we do have is that the more we repeat a behavior, because the brain has learned something, keep away from the water, do not go anywhere near the water, becomes a habit. Over time, competitive, completely repetitive, we have a habit going on. Values. This comes from our early learnings. What's important to us? The brain is trying to keep us safe up to the age of 7, and it succeeds. Way we get to the age of 8. Hurrah! Thereabouts. It's not hard and fast. What it's now doing is trying to make sure you belong. And belonging is a form of safety, but it's a bigger one because it now needs you to be more integrated with the people around you so that you're part of a tribe of some sort. So I often talk about drugs, rock and roll, sex, all that good stuff in the teens, because what we're doing is aligning ourselves with a group of people who may or may not be good for us. They're part of a journey. You'll be able to cover that, I'm sure. It's not wrong. It's just part of the journey. We're fitting in. When we go to work, we fit in. As women, we fit into the female role for most of us, not all of us. But even if you're rebelling, you're fitting in to the rebel side of the world, aren't you? So you can't escape it. But all that time, we're starting to find out what's important to us. What's important to us? And very often people haven't got a clue. They do know when they identify it, but they won't be able to reel it off for you. Why is this important? Because these early learnings, these emotions, and these values are what's driving your thoughts. And people do not realize that. Everybody talks about mental health, lovely, glad they are. But what they don't realize is, where did they originally come from? They don't just come out of thin air. They come from this early stage learning. So our thoughts are already part of our programming. And yes, you'll learn some stuff. Hello, learning. We'll see what that comes out. It'll come out as a thought. And that drives our behaviors. And our behaviors will then drive our experience. So if you've got a problem with water as a phobia, you're gonna know that actually going near water is going to cause you some worry or anxiety or just no. And then the importance is to avoid it. The thought value is, if something comes up, how am I going to get out of it? And the behavior is avoidance. Your experience, you don't go there, but you're not overcoming something. And one day something will happen. You've been sold a beautiful exotic cruise somewhere and you're like, I really want to go, but it's near water. Now you've got a challenge going on. So for me, if we can understand these levels of learnings that need to be addressed holistically, I think we have the real possibility of aligning our head brain, our heart brain, and our gut brain, and we will just find life being so much easier. It will just flow. And when we combine that with, gratitude practices and, other practices like that, would just be amazing. Just be amazing, a complete turnaround. It doesn't happen overnight, though. I'm not going to say this is a magic cure, quick fix things. Sometimes I have found that when you've cleared stuff, everything will be fine. And then something will come along and you're like, I've dealt with that before. You have, but now you're facing new fears that have been even more embedded in the matrix, if you like, and you need to deal with them. But I think self-awareness.
It's interesting because I was going to ask, how easy is it to address these various layers? Because it looks like it's linear, but I'm going to hazard a guess and say that it's not necessarily linear. And how do you sort of address sort of touching all of these layers when, they may be sort of out of order in terms of,
Exactly.
how you sort of look at them.
I think the key is it all starts with you, so self-awareness.
Mm,
Now, obviously, I've talked about emotions are like a sat nav for us. I'd like to say I came up with that idea. I didn't. Esther Hicks did, but I loved it so much. It was like, yes, I'm going to go with that one because it's a sign. But for
mhm,
those of you who were like me or are like I wasn't in touch with her emotions, I have to have a translation that goes in my head. What am I feeling? To start looking. It depends where you will notice things. You might notice things at your
mm,
experience level. And I've got a booklet which I've shared with you as part of a free giveaway here. And in here, I have got things that cover habits, which is your behaviors, because most of them will be. There's something called, I've called it the hot pen exercise. Some of you may know it as the automatic letter writing exercise. Allows you to tap into that deeper you,
mhm,
to discover your own solutions. Doesn't guarantee you'll always get immediate responses, but if you do it often enough and you act on it, your unconscious mind will begin to trust you and it will give you the information you want. There is a values exercise. How can you not have a values exercise? So important.
exactly.
Exactly. And then there is one for emotions called emotional freedom technique, which a lot of people will know as EFT or tapping. Doesn't matter what it is, it's a really good all-round solution. I love it because it can work at an emotional level. So you don't even need to know what exactly is going wrong, but it can also work on your thought processes or your behaviors
Mhm,
and your experience. So it works on all those areas. So three, so five, yes. And if you've got a belief, it will work on that as well for most people. Again, you might have to do this, repetitively for a while, but you'll start to see things easing. And the reason tapping or EFT works so well is because it, excuse the phrase, taps into your five senses. How
mhm,
do you learn? Five senses. And that's really what we've got to do. We've got to engage as many senses as possible to overcome the original learning.
mhm. I love that. Engage as many of the senses as possible to
Yes.
become the original learning. I absolutely love that, and I know how important that is.
Mm,
In your experience, have you had clients in overwhelm, but it's become so familiar to them, and as you said, bouncing from maybe stress to overwhelm, that it's almost difficult to get them out of it. It's almost difficult to journey them out of it. Does that
yeah.
make mm,
Oh, it does. If I may use a personal
mm,
experience, I I used to drive. In fact, I used to live in tension the whole time. It was part of the
mhm,
stress, but it
mhm,
become normalized, and I didn't know it was going on. But it was something else that came up. I had a backache, and the doctors had said, "Oh, you got to live with it for the rest of your life." Oh my God, no. Um, Bless them. And I can't do that. And I went to see a lady who's now a very good friend, and we did some work on it. And I have to this day no idea what exactly she did, but I felt a release
mm,
in my back, and it was like, oh, hold on a moment, that feels better. But I
mm,
also then noticed that the tension in my body, particularly when I was driving, was less.
mhm,
It took some more work, but basically it was all emotional. My body was saying, you've got a problem and you need to stop. The backache was about making me pay attention and do
mhm,
something.
mhm,
But it's only when something becomes too painful do you do something about it. It's only when you let somebody down badly do you do something about it. Otherwise, you just keep going because it has become so normal. So for some people, they may not realize what it is, but you ask them one question, what do you need? And they'll be taken aback by the question, to be honest. Well,
yeah,
what do you mean? Well, what? What do you need? because nobody's really not because they're bad people, let me be clear, but because they're so busy with their own stuff, they can't cope with yours as well. And so consequently, I don't think we look after each other enough.
Mm,
What do you need?
mm.
Such a simple question. For somebody to say, they'll probably say nothing, oh, I'm fine, it's okay. But if they're open to it, that little earworm will work its way through and it'll be like, oh, hold on a moment, I do need something. And then they'll come up with it.
I love that. What do you need? What do you need? Checking in on each other, but also, checking in with ourselves. I know it was the same for me, and I know a lot of my clients exist in that state of, stress, overwhelm, almost as a baseline. And as you say, don't realize that. And so
Yeah, I
asking
do.
the question, what do you need? Checking in with each other, asking others what do they need, I think is a wonderful, wonderful starting point. And then dropping into the body, listening to the body. I always say the body never lies. So dropping into the body and understanding the signals and the signs that are happening within the body. What is the body trying to get us to do?
Yes, exactly. And the
I think,
body never does lie.
yeah.
And I guess whilst I do a lot of work mindset, which for me is the behaviors, the thoughts, the values, the emotions, and those inner learnings, I'm going to say
Mm,
a lot of people will talk about limiting beliefs or whatever. I'm talking about the learnings because sometimes those beliefs are working for you. They may not be something you want, but until you've corrected what's behind them, they're just going to keep being there. So
they are just going to keep being there. Kim, thank you so much for sharing this information.
thank
So,
you.
if people want to know how to find out more, how to break through these many layers, and get out of overwhelm, how can they get in contact with you?
Everything is Kim Searle, so it's nice and simple. So my website is Kim Searle, but it's .co.uk. And my email is kim@Kim Searle. So pretty much that or emotional mastery will bring me up on Google, and you'll find some of my social media side of things there.
Brilliant. That's awesome. And I know that your free gift is an amazing workbook that will take people through some of the exercises that you've described today. So I
Yes,
think
it
it's going
will.
to be a really, really useful tool for people to have. So,
Yes.
Kim, I just want to say thank you so much for sharing all of that wisdom and information with us today and for your beautiful special gift and the special gift of you. So,
Well,
thank you so much
thank
for being here. It's
yeah.
an absolute joy. Thank you.
Thank you very much for inviting me and for all the listeners. It all starts with you. This is the beginning of your journey. This whole is it 2 weeks,
Yes,
Kia? You're
yes.
going to get some amazing information. You take what you can. You won't get it all. Just take some of it and start running with that.
Oh, I love that. Thank you, Kim. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And look forward to seeing you soon. Thanks then.
Bye.